All right, welcome in everyone. It is Monday morning, Super Bowl Monday. It's time for full court press. Rob Veno, how was the Super Bowl? Did you do anything? What was your Super Bowl Sunday like?
Super Bowl Sunday's been the same for about the last 4 years. We actually host a neighborhood party here at my house. Neighbors arrive about, I don't know, anywhere from 90 minutes to 2 hours before the game starts, and you get to catch up a little bit on what's going on with everybody. And then when you have these parties, Adam, it's always the same thing, right? There's way too much food. Everybody brings something. You got to send it all home with them. The majority of my neighbors, I have to tell you the honest truth, might not know half a thing about football. There's a couple who do, which is a pleasure to sit with. But you catch up on other aspects with all of them. So that was good. What was better was the fact that we had a 5% on the Seahawks, and it was really never in doubt. I never at one time felt threatened by the Patriots in that game, laying 4.5. It is kind of crazy, not to spend too much time with football because we're a college hoop show, but it is crazy that people who held under tickets were one penalty flag away from losing that under bet, which was a surefire winner the entire game. Then Kenneth Walker breaks one, which looks like it's going to bring over bettors back to the garbage can to tape their ticket back together. And it got called back. So solid game. My youngest son is a Seahawks fan to the core, so I'm happy for him. And we move on to college hoops solely now. As you like to say, the college basketball experts show up.
Oh, they're all rolling in, Rob.
They're
all going to be rolling in. I can't. Yeah, it is what it is. But hey, we've been here since November, grinding it out, and I do think that will. I mean, if it hasn't already, it'll ultimately pay off. I didn't have the best November, December, which was unfortunate because I feel like historically that's always been a good time to beat the market in college hoop. Though I do think things have changed in that regard a little bit with all the rosters moving around and stuff. The last few years, for me personally, February and then that first week in March has been the best stretch of the year. Like consistently for me, going back like 5 years. If you go back a couple years ago, I had an insane run like during the NCAA tournament. Those are always nice, but it's hard to count on. That's, in my opinion, that's the hardest time. That's almost like running hot. It's like running good in the NFL. Like you can't convince me that anyone out there is just like so sharp that they're beating like NFL sides and like full game totals, like on a every single year basis. So like, that's kind of how I look at the NCAA tournament. Like, yeah, you can run hot in the tourney, but most years it's going to be, once you get past that first weekend, it's going to be hard to like truly find like big time edges in the tournament. Now, the other smaller tourneys, that's a whole different story. But anyway, we're here. We're ready to rock. Rob Veno, big game out in Lawrence, Kansas tonight. I was just there. That was, and listen, my sister went to Duke, and I when she was a student there, I would steal an ID, like a student ID from one of her friends that wasn't going to the game. And I got myself into the Duke student section in a couple of Duke games back. This would have been 2011, 2012, I think, right around that time. Nolan Smith, I believe, was on the team, a Plumlee brother or two, those Duke teams. I was at Kansas last weekend for the BYU game. That was as that's the only thing that I think is compared yet to going to Duke and sitting with the crazies, right? Being part of the student section. Was that environment last week at Allen Fieldhouse just tremendous. Today, Rob, Arizona comes in. Is it safe to say this is their? And listen, I know they beat BYU the other night, and they believe they went on the road to do that. I think that was a road game. But you start to look at this Big 12 schedule for Arizona. They really haven't been tested much yet. You could argue, Rob, that their two toughest games to date were both before Thanksgiving. Arizona, UConn, both of those games, or I'm sorry, Florida and UConn, both of those games occurred before the Thanksgiving holiday. So I don't know. This seems to be a really tough test. We've seen the other unbeaten teams sort of finally fall, other than Miami of Ohio at this point, but certainly other power conference unbeaten teams. So my question to you, Rob Veno, is this where the unbeaten season ends for the Arizona Wildcats.
Well, I'll say this much, Adam. I think beating up on the less thans that Arizona has played in the schedule has certainly overvalued them in some aspects. If we just split it into side and total results, right? Where the total is concerned, Arizona, they're priced to the over so heavily at this point in time that they've actually gone now 5 of the last 6 to the under full game, 5 of the last 7 to the under team total, but yet their against the spread numbers are 4-1 over the course of the last 5. So it's hard to break it into pieces like that and say, well, you know what? Maybe Arizona still has value inside, but they certainly don't have value playing over anymore. All the value is in the under with this team. And now you get a game like this where Kansas has taken out the last 2 teams that rolled in here that thought they had a chance. And they're on a pretty nice ATS streak right now as well. You know, the problem I find for Kansas tonight is on the glass. Arizona, I'm just going to give you some numbers here real quick. What's going on with Arizona in Big 12 play? 10 of the 12 games that they've played, they've out-rebounded their Big 12 opponent by 12 or more, a dozen or more rebounds against 10 of the 12 teams. That's crazy. And Kansas is not a good rebounding team. 3rd to last inside the league. Not good on the middle of the pack as far as their defensive board work is concerned. So if they're going to get crushed somewhere tonight where they haven't been crushed to date, or at least during this recent hot streak, it's going to be on the boards. Kansas, obviously 6-1 against the spread last 7. The big home win against Iowa State. And then, of course, the win against BYU are the 2 big teams I referred to coming in here and getting beat. Is Arizona the same as those 2? I'm not sure. Iowa State doesn't crash the boards the way Arizona does. BYU, we've talked about a little bit beyond the starting unit. There's not a lot of depth. I'm almost inclined to say here, Adam, that it doesn't catch up with Arizona in this particular spot, despite venue, despite hot streak for Kansas. The price tag here is only 2.5. And like I said earlier, they are 4-1 against the spread their last 5, Arizona. So odds makers may not have caught up in that territory. And you may be. Let's reverse it a little, right? Because you've gone on record as saying you think that teams, especially home teams, start to get taxed a little extra at this point for home floor and whatnot. And maybe the tax here is applied to Allen Fieldhouse and the hot run that Kansas is on, because to see Arizona only a 1.5 opener, market bets them up to 2.5. I don't know, based on what we've seen out of Arizona, I would say this, based on their depth, based on their rebounding, their point guard play is really good. I might look Arizona here to stop this Kansas win streak. That's the way I would prefer to look. As far as total is concerned, like I say, Arizona's been on this huge under run. But just to stop in my tracks a little bit, KU's been on such a good offensive run at this point in time. And some of their stuff is, Council Jr., who we've talked about a ton, Darren Peterson, who we don't really need to talk about because everybody who fell off a tree branch knows who he is. They got guys that can put it in the bucket. So I'm inclined to say that this one gets over 151.5, just because of the way the matchups fall in this game, and maybe Arizona minus the points. So there you go. Because WagerTalk might clip it, I give you two thoughts here. I give you Arizona laying points, which I think is probably the right side, and probably an over 151.5 from my perspective.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is so that was kind of that was one of my first thoughts as well, was, numbers probably too short, even though I don't mind, Kansas in the spot at home. I don't think it's going to be an easy game for Arizona. I do think when you look at this stretch coming up for the Wildcats, there's probably a loss in here somewhere, right? Like, this schedule gets very, very difficult from now till the end of the season. And then you sort of throw in the fact that you're going to probably get everyone's best shot, through that stretch. There's probably a loss somewhere in here for Arizona. But, this game is very interesting to me because you've got a Kansas team that has the best player in college basketball in Darren Peterson. Whether he plays the full game or not, you never really know, right? And there's obviously ulterior motive there. You've got, they're trying to, he's obviously trying to protect himself for the draft in terms of, I almost think it's the type of thing, Rob, where it's like he must have someone, his agent or his handler, whoever it is, like in people's ears saying like, okay, we've shown enough in this game. Like that's what it feels like a lot of times where it's like he played 20 minutes, 17 points on 6 of 8 shooting. All right, he's shown enough, right? Now, I do think Kansas has a little bit of a say where it's like, hey, we need to go out and win this game. But that's kind of how I felt at the BYU game where he played the first half, was excellent. They got up 20, and now he's not out in the second half. So I don't know if Kansas has like the negotiating power to be like, no, we need him for the full game here. It's the number 1 team in the country. But like, there's no question about it. Like when he's on the floor, I mean, Kansas is so like, you need him on the floor, right? Like you need to know if he's going to be on the floor because when he's not, even going back to that second half, Kansas BYU, I mean, BYU was able to quickly get back in the game. Kansas's offense didn't have that same punch without him. Now on the Arizona side, you might have a couple of guys that can guard him here more so than some of the other teams Kansas has played of late. And then when you're talking about Kansas, Kansas or Arizona's ability to score on Kansas, well, Kansas is really solid 2-point defense. We've talked about this in, some of the Kansas breakdowns over the last couple weeks where you kind of have to win one-on-one matchups and score against them. They're very good at keeping you out of the paint and forcing you into like a tough paint shot. That's why I thought BYU would have more success against them because I thought the Bansta would win some of those matchups, and he really didn't. That was my biggest takeaway from that game, right? Like Kansas BYU, which was, and then really Kansas Texas Tech at times as well. Those were some good scores that couldn't really seem to get going against Kansas's defense on the interior. Now, you can shoot threes against Kansas. We talked about that. You've made the point where Kansas will give you a 3. Interesting to me, Arizona doesn't take any threes. They take threes as little as anyone in the country, but Rob, they hit on a pretty good clip. So it's almost like they're not firing up threes because they don't have to jack up threes, right? They've got the ability to score on the inside. But you can't say they can't make them because Arizona's 3-point shooting this year, they're 88th in the country, 35.5% from 3-point range. So they're hitting them at a good enough percentage. They just don't take many of them. Very interesting game. My thought was it's not the worst spot in the world to maybe like play for the Arizona loss, but like you, Rob, I couldn't get there on that number. I think the tax for Allen Fieldhouse, even being as incredible of a venue as it is, was a little bit too high. So for me, I really don't have any real actionable info here. And sometimes that's going to happen. We're going to talk through it and maybe point you to something else. I would love to take Kansas in this game, but for me, I needed a little bit more. I needed a better number, Rob, than 2 or 2.5. If this comes back throughout the day, because again, a lot can happen. Let's say Arizona gets hit and suddenly we're in the 4 range, right? We're in that 4, like 3.5, 4.5 range. I think you could talk me into a Kansas play at that number. At the current number, just not going to be anything for me. So I will, I guess, for the sake of a pick, in case they clip this, I'll defer to you and hopefully we can get your total will get there because I think this is a very tough game to bet on the side.
Well, here's what just happened while you went through your analysis. The game got hit both ways. The number went back to to Arizona, only 1.5. The 2.5s all went away. We're looking at 1.5 and 2. And the total went from 151.5 straight up to 153. So they played Kansas. They played over. The over move was universal. You see some 153.5s out there. Now, the side move, not quite as universal. You can still, there could be a lag in some of our, signal stuff here, Adam, but you could mostly 1.5s, a couple of 2s. a straight 2.5 or whatnot. So you can, we talk about this all the time. We come on from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. every morning,
Yeah.
and these lines get hit in this particular time period. They get hit.
Yeah, and that's why everyone's like, because when I'm not on, and I'm not traveling the globe trying to go to a game, I'm at home, right? And so when I'm at home, people are like, why are you always looking off to the side during the show? Well, the board's going crazy. We do this show at like the time where all this stuff starts to really go nuts. And so yeah, it's it's good and bad. It's good because you get some real-time reaction to it. It's bad for us because a lot of times the window to bet on a move like that can be slim, where your number's totally gone. And so I think it's good to note though. But I mean, I think it benefits the viewers the most because a lot of this stuff we can kind of talk through. Okay, maybe that's a fake. Maybe that's actually real, legitimate action coming in. Rob, I think during this window, a lot of times, this is the window I think is pretty legit from the moving standpoint. I think the fakes come a little earlier in the morning, and then 10, 10:30, 11 is when like actual money starts to get thrown around. So anyway. Billy Humphreys says, I swear the odds makers watch this show. Hey, maybe they do. Who knows? That's a compliment if they do. But all right, let's move it along. We got a good one in the Coastal tonight. First time, I think I didn't accidentally call it the Colonial Athletic Association. I'm still sort of, can't help myself in that regard. It was the CAA for so long. I can only imagine, unless they name the MAC something totally different, the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference, I'm sure I'll slip up there. I believe I heard this past weekend that we may have a new name for that league by the end of the year, end of the year going into the next year. So we'll see about that. But a couple years back, the Colonial changed to the Coastal. I think it had to do with the fact that, they looked and said, wow, this league, which used to be, kind of Colonial Virginia based, right? Like with all those older schools, is suddenly Northeastern all the way down to Charleston. So Coastal is actually probably a name that represents the league better. Though these two are perfect examples of that. Wilmington, Charleston, both sort of coastal teams. Huge game tonight in this league. I thought, there was a point in time, Rob, I thought Wilmington was like far and away the best team in this league, especially when you saw the early struggles of Charleston and then them losing players, Mr. Dean going down. They had Hickman went down for a while. He's back. They had a couple other injury concerns, and now they're back. So, Chris Mack, I don't think is getting enough credit right now. And I know you love, following coaches and comments. And Chris Mack was a guy that I think was taking a little heat earlier in the year when Charleston came out, started the season, 2-3. They had a bad loss to Drake, or what people considered a bad loss to Drake, got blown out by Florida Atlantic and Liberty. And suddenly the Charleston Cougars have won 5 straight. And as you start to look at this league shaking out, Hofstra had that stretch where they lost a couple. Towson is just not what I think anyone thought they would be this year. A lot of people had Towson up at the top of this league. Wilmington to me has been a little bit underwhelming. They were handled by William and Mary the other night in a game that I thought set up nicely for them, that you and I put in our parlay as a pretty big money line, -220 money line, and they got blown out. So, now Wilmington hits the road to Charleston. Or sometimes in this spot, because I did kind of like Wilmington in that William and Mary game, I'm inclined to look toward the Wilmington side. But when this one opened, thinking okay, it's only like -115 for Charleston. I actually made them a bigger favorite than that. Not by much, but slightly in the 2.5 to 3 range. So very intriguing game. I couldn't really I couldn't really get there either way, because I think I can make a case for both sides. But the chat wants to know what you're feeling. Wilmington, Charleston, big matchup in the Coastal tonight.
Yeah, I think the biggest reason why I can't make a firm decision on this game, Adam, is because Wilmington's got 2 losses in league, and they're both to William and Mary. Is it just a William and Mary problem, or is it a real problem? I'm not sure. They beat everybody else, just can't beat William and Mary twice now. and like you say, I mean, I honestly thought there was a good revenge angle there with Wilmington, and thought that Wilmington had the horses second time around after seeing William and Mary once. Maybe we can make the right adjustments and win the game. They couldn't do it. To William and Mary's credit, it was, I don't want to call it a wire to wire, but it was kind of the game where you always felt like you were going uphill with Wilmington. You never felt comfortable in that game at any point. They come back off of that game tonight, but they shot, the thing is they shot it really well against William and Mary. You hit 53% from the field, 46% from three, which is not customary for Wilmington. It's not customary for anybody to shoot 46% from three, but especially for Wilmington, it's not something that's in their complete wheelhouse, shooting threes, and they still found a way to lose. So I'm starting to think that it's more of a matchup problem with William and Mary. Like, if I think ahead to the Coastal Tournament, Adam, and Wilmington and William and Mary play for a third time, and you hear all that, oh, it's so tough to beat a team three times. I just feel like William and Mary probably could beat them three times. They've shown it twice now. It's just a great matchup. Is Charleston as good of a matchup for Charleston as William and Mary's is against this team for them? Not sure. Not sure. I'll say one thing. Since Duggan and Hickman came back, team's been on a complete roll. It took them a couple to get going, but they've been on a complete roll. You referred to the injuries early on. Those were a couple of guys who were out parallel to each other, and the November, December stuff wasn't going so well. And then all of a sudden, very, very end of December into January, now into February, it's been good. So when I watch Charleston, I feel like they are upper echelon of this league. This game is for first place, so to speak. Wilmington wins, they hop right back in with Charleston into first place. They'll actually take the lead because Charleston will have their third loss. So it's huge from a standings perspective. I'm trying to think off the top of my head how that bracket works in the CAA. Could be a standard bracket, could be something funky where the top two or top four get extra days off. Go ahead.
They don't get crazy buys, but it has been a league in the past where, like, I think like 13 the bottom few play that first game, and someone always makes a run. Like, I think Delaware last year was like the 12 and they made a run. So I don't think it's historically, I don't think it's benefited like the very top seeds. The year before, I think you had Stony Brook make a pretty crazy run all the way to the final. A year Wilmington, I think Stony Brook made a run to the final the year Wilmington maybe won it, but again, I'm going off the top of my head there. It hasn't benefited the top seeds historically, as far as I can remember.
Right. So no crazy double buys like maybe your Mac. And I mean, the benefit to it is that you always get to play the lesser seeded opponent if you finish one. So anyway, teams are always looking for regular season titles. There's going to be a huge focus placed there, emphasis placed by both of these teams on this game. I come back to the same thing. I kind of want to take Charleston just because they've been on a roll, but I almost think that Wilmington matches up better with them than they did William and Mary. Charleston is going to go quicker, but they're not going to go William and Mary quick. And maybe that's just the problem for Wilmington, because it's hard for me to see that team shooting 53% like they did against William and Mary. If you'd have told me that before the game started, I'd have said, we don't need money line, Adam. We're going to cover this number anyway. But they didn't. So we'll see. I think it's a really tough matchup. The total here, 148 and a half. Probably in a good spot. I could see it landing in that vicinity. So again, great game for those of us who like to watch mid-major, top-level contests inside conference. Be good to watch. But for me, I'll have to evaluate NC Wilmington. If Charleston wins, Adam, then we know NC Wilmington isn't really the clear-cut top team. It's an overall problem, not just a William and Mary problem.
I'll tell you what. I'll take a little bit of a stand and give a pick. It's not going to be a client pick, but I think if this hits 2.5, that's good enough to take a shot with NC Wilmington. I just pulled my notes back up. I was at minus 1.6 for Charleston, so I wasn't quite as high. I was going off memory. So 1.6. I think 2.5 is just enough where you can consider that that Wilmington is a good bet, even at 2, if you really wanted to stretch it. I think Wilmington +2, at least you're getting the key number of getting a bucket. But I do think after this sort of recent, Charleston took a little bit of money this morning, so there are some books that maybe move too far and are too slow to correct. That are probably still hanging a 2.5. It looks like FanDuel, DraftKings, some of the legals are still hanging 2.5s in this game. The reason I think Wilmington is in a decent spot to bounce back, just from like a spot standpoint, because I really do think this is a very even matchup. But that loss to Wilmington came on the heels of 3 straight road games. Okay, so the way that was scheduled, and Rob, maybe we didn't put enough stock into this when we talked about this game on Thursday, but you always bring this up, like the first game back from a very long, grueling road trip tends to be tough, and then suddenly you got to play Wilmington, Brian Earl, that crazy style. That's the team you draw in that spot. Maybe we didn't put enough stock into that for Wilmington last week, but remember, they played William & Mary, Hampton, and Towson in 3 consecutive games on the road. That Towson game was Towson's biggest game of the year. Blackout, sellout game, right? National TV. And Wilmington went on the road and got an 82-73 win in that game. So I didn't think much of it at the time because they had a week off in between. But that was 3 straight road games. They came off a huge win over Towson. And I think they maybe just like weren't fully ready for the William & Mary Brian Earl experience, which when they're humming is tough, right? Like that is when they're like playing the way that they can play and they're doing it in an efficient manner, that's a tough matchup. They lose that game. As you were saying, uphill climb from them. They were never really in it. They have a chance to regroup. I think this is a big game for them. They have size, which is going to keep Charleston out of the paint. And that's one thing Charleston hasn't done particularly well this year is shoot the 3. It's been a little bit better since like Hickman and the other guy that's name is escaping me right now came back. But Charleston, I was at the Charleston-Towson game. Charleston got kind of blown out in that game. And that was another thing where Towson was able to sort of keep them on the perimeter, keep them taking tough shots, and they couldn't really get much offense going. So I think that might be what happens to Charleston here. Whether that puts you on the under or you want to take a shot with Wilmington at +2.5, 2 or 2.5, I think it's fine. But yeah, I'm going to go with I'll go with Wilmington +2.5 being the way I would go in that game.
You've been in that building, Charleston's?
I have not yet. It is on the list. Not going to happen this year, but I will get there. I haven't been to Wilmington either. Those are 2 that I got to get down to because from what I hear, Trask Coliseum has an elite mid-major atmosphere. Always packed, always sold out. That William & Mary game was sold out. And so again, I think sometimes the overhyped spot can work against a team, right? Where it's just like, and I almost think that could have happened a little bit to Wilmington last time out. So this might be the spot to come back with the Seahawks in what should be a very good game nonetheless. All right, Rob Veno, quick promo. We've got our package, 3 days, all access, double the firepower, CBB. You get all of my plays. You get all of Rob's plays. That is the way to do it if you're looking for bang for your buck, volume, per play cost being as low as possible. That's the way to do it. 3 days, all access. We are right in the thick of college basketball. There's, I had a rare pass yesterday because they kind of gave us a slate with nothing, very few games on Super Bowl Sunday. So I had a very nice solid 3-2 on Saturday. Didn't love anything yesterday, so I decided to pass. I've already started firing plays today. So yeah, that is the double the firepower CBB all access pack. You should check that out. It is very reasonably priced for a 3-day all access where you're getting two handicappers, myself and Rob. So go, check that out. Run that up for us because if it does, so the way it works, if that package does well, they'll keep it up. If it doesn't, for some reason, they'll probably take it down. And we don't want to, if they take it down, it ultimately hurts you guys trying to buy the picks because then you're back to, that 2-for-1 is gone. So continue to support that for us. We very much appreciate it. And I'll continue to drop a client player or 2 on the show when I can. I may be able to do it today. I've got one locked in already that I think I'll probably give here. But I want to go to Garth first. Garth, I think this is a typo, but I'm reading this, and I think what he means is Southern Illinois, Indiana State, because he then says He leans Indiana State 2.5. So you'll have to clarify, but I'm going to read this as thoughts on Southern Illinois, Indiana State, because Indiana State and Illinois State are not playing each other, but they both play today. But the Indiana State 2.5, the other line is way, way off. So I'm going to read that as you lean Indiana State. You lean Indiana State against Southern Illinois. Rob Veno, we talked about Southern Illinois on Friday night when I complimented the Missouri Valley for being the only team that truly scheduled properly this week, and they took over Friday night, and now they're taking over tonight, Rob. So you were right about that game. Southern Illinois just not really being able to handle to be able to score. I believe that was the Murray State game. Was the Southern Illinois opponent. Murray State ended up getting there in, I believe, an ugly game. I just want to double check and make sure I'm right about that, because some of these teams' games blend together. It actually got kind of crazy after a while. It was 91-81. So Rob, I'll let you kind of take this game over. That was not the game Southern Illinois wants to play. Southern Illinois does not want to play a 91-81 game with Murray State. That's just not the game they want to play, and it does not surprise me that they lost a game where there was 170 points. Can they slow this down enough to be competitive with Indiana State, or are you going to lean with Garth? Do you think this is another loss for the Salukis?
Yeah, I think the point we made Friday was the fact that we didn't think Southern Illinois could keep up with Murray State. If Murray State can impose their will, can Southern Illinois keep up? They're a horrendous three-point shooting team. And I think I said Friday, it's been stated by a couple of MVC beat writers that I've been reading this year that they don't understand why teams just don't automatically come out and zone Southern Illinois because they can't shoot it from the perimeter. And we had noted that Murray State, that's not in their nature. They're going to go man for the most part, and they're just going to try and turn it into a track meet, and can you keep up with us? And Southern Illinois did, but they didn't shoot the ball from three. 5 of 22 from three, still got to 81 points because Murray State's defense is permissive. The matchup here, Adam, is two of the worst three-point shooting teams against two of the better three-point shooting defenses. So I see this total this morning go from 141 to 147. Maybe the 141 is a communication problem. Again, maybe technology got in the way here and it didn't really start at 141, but we have this, the odds logic screen is pretty darn accurate in everything that they put up. So I have to believe there was a 6-point move on this game from the opener till now. Don't quite understand it. As we've said now a couple of times, Southern Illinois doesn't want to play that way. Indiana State may want to play that way more. Their style is a little more conducive to putting up points. But again, nobody shoots it well from the perimeter. They both defend the perimeter well. Are we going to get 148 off of the interior here? Are we going to get a 148 off of second chance points or fast break points or any other way that points come in games, the free throw line, etc.? And when I went through the numbers this morning, it's hard for me to think that that's the case. Now we're getting a little info here from Spoons. Does it say Spoons Bets? Is that who it is, Adam? That's
Illinois
dealing with an injury.
That's good stuff right there. I wanted to make sure that got pointed out. Yeah, Spoons Bets with some potential Southern Illinois injury intel. So yeah, go ahead and read that, Rob.
Yeah, it says Southern Illinois is one of their starters, Mayo, dealing with a toe injury. Didn't look like he could run in their last game. Only played 2 minutes. As we go through box here, Damian Mayo did only play 2 minutes in that game, and they still got to 81 points against Murray State. But again, Murray State's a unique game. It's a unique style. It's a keep up with us type of game. We'll see if that has an effect, if the toe injury has an effect here. I just, from a general overall totals perspective, did not understand the 6-point move to the total. I forget whose question this was originally, Adam. Maybe it was Garth who said he leans.
He likes Indiana State. Yeah, he likes Indiana State in this one.
I can't dispute him simply because Southern Illinois, while they're gritty, they just don't shoot it well enough. So Indiana State's not a team that I want to have my money on, but if there's deeper injury concerns, then potentially you could be there. I'm just looking real quick to see if I can find any updated injury news on Mayo. We're trying to do this on the fly as we get that piece of info from Spoon's Bets, which is welcome to the two of us. Believe me, thank you for that. But I don't see anything definitive. So we'll see. We'll see. Maybe as it gets closer to game time, we can tell. But Garth, I would not talk you off the Indiana State side. They're just not a team that's consistent enough for me. I could see Southern Illinois in a, in like a 72-68 type game getting the win, but I'm not going to bet it. So I'll leave Indiana State to you, Garth. Appreciate the question. Just don't have a great enough answer other than I'm kind of head scratching because of the total move. Don't understand a 6.5 point move on this total towards the over.
I think I would roll with Garth if Mayo is in fact out. I mean, listen, if you can stop Quelleron House at this point, you're probably going to beat Southern Illinois. Like that, he really is the whole sort of engine to that offense when he's playing well. And now last game's a little bit misleading because that kind of started to get out of hand. Like House had 26 points, but that's I guess a good in-game angle. I don't think you're ever going to see Southern Illinois. This Southern Illinois team is just not winning a game that's played in the 80s. Not against like good competition. Like, obviously that you can go back and see that they, I think they had that win over High Point that they're still probably getting a lot of, it's gotten a lot of mileage for them. Right. But that was a game played on some island somewhere, Rob. That was like the second game in 2 days. It's like, I almost like totally throw those games out by this point in the season. Like if you beat High Point in an MTE in November in the 80s, like I got to pretty much throw that out. The games that they're going to win are like when they beat, like, so if you look at their last couple games, the Northern Iowa game, 65-50, the Illinois State game, 54-50. Southern Illinois has proven that they can beat good teams, but it has to be a low possession game where they can pretty much slow the game down. House can get in the paint and do some things. They're not going to beat you from the perimeter. So I guess my question is Indiana State, who has really not been a great team this year, down near the bottom of the valley, equipped to do that, right? Because if they're not, and Southern Illinois can sort of like execute their game plan here, then they could win a low-scoring game. We've seen them do it on the road. We've seen them do it against better teams. They beat Belmont earlier this year. They executed that game plan against Belmont, who Rob and I think is the class of this league. They went into Curb and won 68-67. So for me, like I just don't know if I trust Indiana State enough. But the Mayo news is good because I don't think that's fully priced in. So I think that's one where it may come out over the course of the day. Is he worth more than a point? Probably not, but that might be the move because this was up from 1 to 2.5. So that may be what that 1.5 move is for. Tough game, Garth. I'm not going to really disagree. If you like Indiana State, I think you roll with it, but it's just Southern Illinois has been a tough nut to crack for me, Rob. It's just too, they have such nice wins, but then they've turned around and lost so many games to teams that are like the less thans that I don't know if I really want to back them only getting a bucket on the road against like the less than. They haven't, these are the games they've been losing. They beat the good teams. They lose this one. So interesting game. Ocho says seems like the under to him. Bayou
let me wrap that up, Adam, real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Before we get to Bayou, I'll just wrap that up. They've played 13 Missouri Valley games this year. If you take regulation, because they have played one overtime, if you take regulation, they're 11-0 to the under. If you use this number, 147, the number we're given today, they're 11-0 under 147. The only 2 times they went over against Murray State, both times. Murray State got them into their game twice, got it over 147. The other 11 teams, again, if you discount the one overtime game and just go by regulation final score, it's 11-0 to the under 147. So again, very surprising to me why people would push this game up 6 points. including the fact that Mayo could be possibly out for Southern Illinois, taking away a huge chunk of their offense. So, numbers are what they are. That's a pretty good sample size, 11-0 under 147 in regulation against every team in the league other than Murray State.
All right, Rob, we got nationally televised Patriot League. It's a Monday. They get their 6 p.m. Eastern Monday night slot for the rest of the year, I believe. So you're going to start your week off with the Patriot League. We talked about it last week. We had a winner with Boston University as part of the parlay. The chat is going back and forth on Bucknell Navy. And I have an opinion here that I ultimately talked myself off of. So I'm interested to see what you have to say about this game, because I really wanted to make a case for Bucknell tonight. I just thought that 7.5, which is now looking like it's 6.5 most places, what was quite a bit off of my number. I only make it Navy minus 3.5. But Bucknell has, when they've against the top 3 teams in this league this year, those are the games they've gotten blown out in. So Colgate twice, Navy once, have run Bucknell out of the gym. Now, I guess the reasoning behind why I wanted to make a case for Bucknell, big home spot for them. I felt like this would be the game they show up and play well. If you remember back to last year, Bucknell was the best team in this league. They beat Navy twice during the regular season, and then they got knocked out of the conference tournament on their home floor by Navy. So certainly a little bit of a revenge angle here for Navy. Obviously, Bucknell can't be happy about that. But the problem is, Rob, these teams change. Even the Patriot League now, who used to be the consistent, you didn't have to worry about NIL or guys leaving. It was almost like the last true, college basketball where you're going to have guys for 3 or 4 years. Well, that's until Alabama comes calling. And then suddenly Noah Williamson, your player of the year, has hit the portal and he's no longer there. Why that's so important? Navy's got a gentleman by the name of Aiden Kehoe, who is as good of a big as you're going to run into in this league. And they've also, we've talked about this on the show a couple of times, have had the best team all year in this league right from the rip. I think we said it would come down to Navy, Colgate. Once you had the Boston University injuries, they were never going to be in the mix. So, Rob, I do think Navy might be due to not just completely trash someone. They've crushed everyone they've played of late. But I'm having a hard time finding basketball reasons to be confident in Bucknell here. I like the spot. I like the number. But boy, has Navy been good. And without that big-time rim protector, who stops Kehoe in this matchup? So Navy Bucknell, what do you have to say about this one?
And you know me, I'm going to look at it from this total perspective, Adam. So good analysis on this side. Let me just tell you that whenever Navy plays this year, I'm automatically going to look toward, can I play this game over? I think this is a great price range to play over. They played once already. They got to 131. Bucknell only scored 55. Navy scored 76. I've used this a lot in football. I feel like I used it a couple of times here on the show, but I'll say it again. And this is just general theory. I'm going to apply Navy to this theory. Inside the league, their offense is so good that they're going to get theirs against anybody, is just my general thought. Right off the bat, Navy's not going to get cheated out of their points. They shoot it too well consistently. You have a hard time. You'd be hard-pressed to go back through their game logs and find statistical nights where they were brutal. They're very, very consistent. They shoot it from the perimeter, etc. So they got 76 the first time. It was on their home floor. I don't know that they get held under 74, 75 this time. The thing with Bucknell is they only scored 55 last time. And in another one of my, another one of my target areas, Bucknell is off a horrendous shooting performance against Colgate their last time out.
Yeah, Maddie Langle threw the 1-3-1 zone at them. They couldn't do anything with that. Yeah.
32% from the field, 33%, 12% from three of 25. Those numbers, whether you're having an iron fence thrown up in front of you, they got to come up a little bit. You can't be 3 of 25 against everybody. And Navy, for what it's worth, Adam, while obviously the class of the league can be somewhat permissive at times just because they can outscore you. So I guess the bottom line to me is threefold. They got to 131 the first time. We're only asking for 135 this time, 4 extra points. B, Bucknell is off a horrendous shooting performance that I think the numbers will come up in this particular game. As bad as the numbers were, they got the 59 against Colgate. And C, Navy's just going to get theirs against anybody. When I do the mathematics, I say that a lot too when I do the mathematics, but it adds up to me as a game that should get to 135 or better. Again, when we're betting these totals, and sides included, I shouldn't exclude them, but we're not really looking, 134.5. Oh, I think this game's going to hit 150. We're just looking to get to 135, get you paid. That's what we're looking at here. And I think a lot of indicators here say this game should get to 135. So that would be my angle on it. Sidewise, I'll leave that to the chat and yourself, because I wouldn't have a firm opinion there. But I do think this game is priced a little bit too low total-wise.
Yeah, and one thing I'll add to that has been a thing now with this Navy team in its current form. I know it's still basically the same team. I know was it DeChellis, who was there forever, retired, but they basically retain the same team. They play the same way. It's still Austin Bignini is kind of like the engine that makes this team go. And if you struggle, see, here's I think is gonna lend itself to the over as well. If you struggle to keep Navy like out of transition, away from the rim, like last year, Bucknell had as elite of a rim defender as you're probably ever going to find in this league, right? Like Noah Williamson was as good of a player that maybe has ever come out of this league. When was the last time someone transferred from the Patriot League to Alabama, right? Like, I guess you could say Colgate had the kid go to Gonzaga, but still, you just don't see that very often. And so when you can't keep Navy from like going downhill against the rim, specifically Bignini, who basically he's a little bowling ball. He is a little 5'10", 5'11" bowling ball that's going to beat you down the floor, get to the rim, and then he's going to get to the foul line where he literally does not miss. He is an 87.9% free throw shooter, and that dude knows how to close out a game. That the last couple minutes of the game, the ball will be in his hands. That's part of the reason why I'm like scared to take, like, in a game like this, where even if it was a little bit competitive, you get to the end of the game, like Bignini's going to just close the game out. The ball's going to be in his hands. He's going to get fouled eventually because he's good at holding the ball up. And then he's just going to go hit every single free throw. I've been at Navy games, Rob, where he's had like 15, 16 free throw attempts, and suddenly he's got 25, 27 points, and 16 of them are from the foul line. So you want to talk about, like, this is the perfect spread for extension, right? Like if Vegas is right here and this is in that 6, 7, 8 point range, you might get a boatload of points late to get your over. So Bayou says he's beginning to agree the Navy Bucknell over 134.5 is a great bet. I agree as well. I'm gonna stay away from the side here because I just don't trust Bucknell enough, and I do think Navy is really good, but I definitely think there's points in this one. So I'll go with the over here as well. All right, Rob, I'm like torn between a couple of different ways I could go at this parlay, so I'm gonna let you go first if you know. Otherwise, you can put me on the spot and I'll go. I've got like I could do it now. If you want another minute to think about it, I'll give mine out. It's up to you.
Yeah, I'm just checking here real quick. I was
All right, I'm gonna give mine out. I know where I'm gonna go. I'll give you a minute to think about it. I played this for clients. It's moved a tiny bit, so I don't mind giving it out on the show. You can kind of, I guess, do what you want with it. Like, so 4 p.m. game. I know people are going to be excited for no one gets more excited than me, Rob, for a standalone Northeast Conference 4 p.m. game. I can assure you of that. But I played Chicago State on the money line earlier at -140. It looks like it's moved to -160 most places. The spread is pretty much 2.5 everywhere. So if you can, like, listen, if you have one of those books that doesn't offer the money line for an extra board, or is going to really move it considerably, and you can get a good price on a -2, I guess I'm okay with that as well. Here's the reason I like Chicago State today. So in addition to that, like these are two of the worst teams in the league. This should be a horrific basketball game by all accounts. I mean, this is going to be bad basketball right here. Two of the worst teams in the league, probably two of the worst teams in the country. But there was a situation at the end of the St. Francis Lemoyne game that I don't think was like fully sort of, I think if there was footage of this, so the NEC front row broadcast, I believe, cut out right at the way this game went final. And there was a bit of a scuffle in the handshake line. What you could, if you want to go see just an unhinged finish to a game, go look up the end of Lemoyne St. Francis from Saturday. It was like Lemoyne hitting a three. They thought there was no time left. It was actually the same scenario that played out in UNC Duke to an extent, except instead of fans coming onto the court, it was Lemoyne players. The St. Francis coach thought there should have been a tech. There wasn't. St. Francis got the ball, almost hit a three to tie it. It missed. The teams got into the handshake line, and then punches were thrown by both teams. So you had punches thrown by both teams. And from what I was hearing, the players involved for St. Francis were Sky Wicks, who's their best player by far. He's probably their only really, really good player. And Ahmad Harrison. Now, Lemoyne had I believe Sanders from Lemoyne definitely threw a punch, but Lemoyne doesn't play today. So what I'm thinking is the league is probably still trying to review the tape, trying to figure out if there is, I'm sure there is a tape, right? It probably was just the feed cut to the NEC front row. But the point is this, like, this game's at 4 p.m. They're probably going to sort this out at some point this morning. If St. Francis were to show up with no Sky Wicks or even no Harrison, like, that is a big time concern, okay? Specifically Wicks, who's by far their best player. So I just decided I'm going to front run that potentially happening. I'd be shocked if, from what I heard from people that were, because I talked to one person that was there. The game was in Syracuse. It was at Lemoyne. They said that they would be very, very, very surprised if there's not some sort of like suspension handed out, probably a game here and there. So here's how I'm looking at this, Rob. If Wicks or Harrison is out for St. Francis, that's enough where I think I'm going to get at least a point of value on the number. If it's Wicks, this thing probably balloons to 4.5 or 5. You still have St. Francis coming off of a gut-wrenching loss to Lemoyne, where they put everything into that game. And now they have to turn around on the road and make the toughest road trip of the NEC schedule. Remember, Chicago State was added into the NEC to fill out this conference. All of these teams are in the Northeast. It's the Northeast Conference. So everyone has to make the one-off trip to Chicago at one point during the year. St. Francis is in that position today. Other than that, it's a pretty even game. Neither team's very good. Chicago State has shown a little bit of resolve lately. They just had a nice win over New Haven. So I took Chicago State minus 140 based on that. I don't expect you to have a rebuttal to that, Rob. If you don't, you can go on to your play, but that's what we're going to use for the parlay, and that's a 3% play for clients.
Yeah, and just looking at our clock here, Adam, at 10:54, I'll just dive right into mine so that we have a little bit of extra time to maybe fit in one more question from the chat or recap the parlay or whatever. Because I was a little bit torn here, but I'm pretty much going to go with the Indiana-Oregon full game over the total 142.5. Now, the dilemma was, do I just play Indiana team total or do I play full game over? But I think we get value here, Adam. Let's face it, these numbers are based on regular season results, on regular season power ratings to date. And Nate Biddle just came back for Oregon last game against Purdue and basically, stepped right in and reassumed taking the amount of shots that he takes for this team. Only 1 of 8 from 3. Obviously, there was some rust on Nate Biddle. That game stayed well under the total into the 130s. But second game under his belt now, second game with the Oregon other quartet that starts along with him, having him back in the lineup, a little cohesiveness, and a far more accommodating defense in Indiana than Purdue. Purdue can lock you down at times when they play solid basketball. Indiana, not so much this season. However, what's good about Indiana this year is the offense. has been really good. And I think what factors in for me with Indiana here tonight is the fact that, again, it's in Bloomington, but they've had two really poor 3-point shooting games back to back. And Indiana's a pretty good 3-point shooting team. Mid-pack in the Big Ten, a huge conference membership league. They sit 7th in 3-point percentage. And the last thing I'll say here on behalf of Indiana offensively is, I've singled out Tucker DeVries a bunch this year as a guy who's absolutely struggled. But the struggles, I think you can even separate the struggles to when Indiana plays the top defensive teams in the Big Ten, DeVries is a no-show, can't make a shot. When other teams are focused on him or have a defender that can handle him, teams that don't play such great defense, such as Wisconsin on Saturday, DeVries had 16 points again. Oregon sits in that not so great defensive category, even with Biddle back at 6'11", 7 foot. They still haven't been that good of a defensive team. This number is sitting at 142 and a half, if you want to take the high side of it. But to me, that 142 is based on Oregon's ineptitude on offense all season long. It's not based on the fact that Nate Biddle is now back. They're, other than Jackson Shellstad, their best scorer. Shellstad remains out. And it's his second game back in the lineup. These are little things that odds makers don't put into the number. You know what I mean? We talk about statistical stuff. It's all formulated. We make a number, market corrects it, et cetera. I don't know that the market has corrected this one early. So I'm going to jump. I'm going to correct it and say over 142 in the Indiana Oregon. Let me just make sure there's enough 142s out there to say that, Adam. It looks like there's probably a significantly more 142 and a halves out there. So we'll go with that for the show purposes. Indiana's off an overtime game Saturday against Wisconsin. Game went 155. It had overtime included in it. I think Indiana, like I say, bounces back from the 3-point arc tonight against this particular team. Oregon, for what it's worth, sits 13th inside the Big Ten in 3-point defense. So it's a good spot for Indiana, Tucker DeVries and company to shoot threes. Wilkerson's been great for this team offensively. I just think we're taking advantage of a number that's based on, 11 games without Nate Biddle, 20 games without Jackson Shellstad, however many it's been. And with Biddle back in his second game, I think Oregon's offense is probably the key to this. I think Oregon's offense will probably get us enough to get this thing up and over, because I got the utmost faith Indiana will pull close to 80 in this contest. So give me that, Adam. Oregon, Indiana, Big Ten basketball up and over 142 and a half. And just an off-the-cuff comment here. It's crazy to see Murray State hosting a 10 p.m. Eastern game tonight in the Missouri Valley.
That is,
CBS Sports Network wants to get the MVC on TV. I'm all for it, but I haven't seen the 10 o'clock start in the MVC in a while.
I absolutely love that. Standalone games, get your conference some exposure. No, I thought your breakdown was fantastic there. I really don't have anything to add. We will go with two-teamer. One. So someone asked in the chat. We're not going to break down this game, but this is an Arkansas Pine Bluff zip up. I thought we might talk about it. I will throw out one thing that you should look for if you're going to bet Jackson State, Arkansas Pine Bluff. Deshaun Ruffin did not play last time out against Mississippi Valley State for Jackson State. He is the leading scorer in the conference. He's by far the best player in the conference. It may have been just some scheduled rest because everyone is just running through Mississippi Valley State. And he had played 3 straight games of like 40 minutes or more. One of them he played 42 minutes, went in overtime. So, but the market has bet this, Rob, from 4.5 up to 7.5 as if he's going to be out. So if he's out, then I wouldn't do anything with it. But if Ruffin is playing, you should probably take Jackson State just from a numbers perspective. So I guess that's just one thing I'll throw out there. I really don't have much of an opinion on the game. I really like this Pine Bluff team. This was the first. I was running late this morning, Rob, so I just kind of grabbed this and threw it on. I said, "Oh, Pine Bluff's playing today. We'll rep the zip up." But yeah, that's just something to have your eye on if you want to get involved in that game. Recapping the parlay, I'm going to go with Chicago State on the money line. It looks like minus 150 is the first thing I found. Shop around for clients. That's a 3% play at minus 140 for me. Honestly, you could play that for 3% up to like minus 160 something. Like I'd be fine with that. I think it's I think it's a pretty strong play. And if St. Francis has guys out like I expect them to, then it becomes a very strong play. So Chicago State on the money line. Rob's going to go with Indiana, Oregon, over 142.5, plus 218. Baby steps. Let's hit a 2-teamer. Try to get the week going on the right foot like we did last week. And then maybe we'll fire 3-teamers later in the week. That's a parlay of the day. If you want more, we've got plenty more. It's on the Double the Firepower CBB package, which is up on both mine and Rob's pages. Hope everyone has a great day. We'll see you guys back here 10 a.m. tomorrow for more Full Court Press.